unmissable fountain that becomes the place to meet. If you asked me to meet you at American Dream, I would have no idea where to go. The American Dream, bootstraps, frontier, white picket fence, crossed paths with malls when they emerged in the decades after World War II, as the United States reinvented itself. In 1954, for the first time in American history, the number of children born crossed the 4 million mark, a level that would be sustained for each of the next 10 years. The GI Bill of 1944 and Federal Highway Acts approved in 1944 and 1956 subsidized the growth of the new residential suburbs to house these booming families and the roads to reach them. More than 1 million new homes built per year and more than 42,000 miles of highway. What most initial post-war development failed to incorporate, however, was the type of central and centering space that had been part of human civilization since its earliest origins. In subsidizing the home and the road, the government failed to subsidize a place to gather. Something essential to human nature had been missed. People loved to be in public with other people. That momentary joy I felt seeing happy families is the core of the mall's strength and the essence of its ongoing utility. In post-war suburban America, the mall was the only structure designed to fill that need. People and money and controversy and larger structures followed. So, in its turn, did the culture. The late 20th century United States doesn't make sense without the mall. I knew going into this project that I, born in 1973, was part of the mall generation, raised on the smell of those pretzels, able to tune out the music and find my car in a multi-level parking garage. As a design critic, as a child of the 1980s, and as a person devoted to the idea that architecture should serve everyone, the mall was my ideal subject. Like Design for Children, the subject of my last book, the mall was ubiquitous and under-examined and potentially a little bit embarrassing as the object of serious study. Shopping, like children, was a topic for after hours, and malls, like playgrounds, were places dominated by women and children. Go on Etsy and you'll find numerous unironic bumper stickers that read, "A woman's place is in the mall." What I didn't realize was that I had been on the ground for the inception of urban inventions like the Festival Marketplace at Boston's Faneuil Hall, and that, even in my current Brooklyn neighborhood, I was shopping on a pedestrian street that was one of the city's responses to the flight of white dollars to the suburbs. Once I started looking at shopping, not as a distraction, but as a shaper of cities, I saw its traces everywhere. While architecture history tended to focus on suburban houses, and planning history looked to the highways, the shopping mall fell into the cracks between the personal and the professional, as if we as a culture didn't want to acknowledge that we needed a wardrobe, furniture, and tools for both. When I began writing the proposal, I was still nervous, so I mentioned the idea of a book on malls to as many people as I could. Would they be excited? Would they be dismissive? I was emboldened by the almost universal response. "Oh, let me tell you about my mall." In contrast to many other forms of public architecture, which embody fear, power, and knowledge, the mall is personal. People told me about their first jobs, their first piercing, their first boyfriend, their first CD. I found I could sketch the plan of my first mall from memory, down to the placement of the Radio Shack. When I emailed an archive for a picture of what was arguably America's first shopping center, the librarian wrote back with the needed links and added, "As a child of the 1990s, I've got many a fond memory of the mall, including the fad kiosks, Pogs especially." The core of the mall story was architecture, my chosen field, but the personal anecdotes pointed to all the other stories that needed to be told to paint the full picture. Urbanism, practicing driving in a deserted lot. Identity, collecting Pogs. Maturity, going on those teenage dates. Here were hundreds of buildings connected to everyday life and ordinary people. Buildings, as I discovered, that design history had been sidelining for decades. The less common response I got was also less satisfying. "Oh," people said, "you're writing about dead malls." Whereas once the mall appeared a seat of glamour, These respondents could only...
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.